everybody. Happy Easter to those of you who are celebrating Easter. And what a beautiful Saturday morning. What amazing speakers. It is so hard to come after Dr. Jennifer, let me tell you, because her tips were amazing. I love listening, and I was taking notes too, Sherelle. So thank you for that, and all the other speakers as well. So this morning, I'm going to share my story, and then I'll share one quick tip from the book that I think is probably one of the most important things that I can share with all of you who are caregivers. So my story starts in 2017. When I was growing up, I was best friends with my sister, Megan, and we were thick as thieves. She was 6 years older than me. She was kind, thoughtful, loving. I was really blessed to have such a wonderful sister. Even when she was a teenager and I was in elementary school, she would invite me into her room when her friends were over. That's how cool of a sister she was. And, she was almost like a second mom to me because she was older and she just really treated me like I was her baby, but also her sister and her confidant and our best friend as we grew older. In 2017, my sister was diagnosed with non Hodgkin's lymphoma, which was the same cancer Sherelle mentioned my father had passed away from in 1997. Well, my family was devastated. My sister was just 46 years old, actually the age that I am now, and she was a mom to two young girls. And we were surprised. My sister was always healthy. She was a former Division One athlete. She was active. She ate well. She did what we would consider all the right things for your health. But cancer doesn't discriminate, right? Many of us know that from personal experiences. And so she received her diagnosis in September of 2017. She had probably had the cancer for about a year, and it showed up as an autoimmune disease. So she had the cancer, which caused autoimmune disease, and the autoimmune disease showed up first with sores in her mouth, which was awful. Imagine if you ever had a cold sore having like 20 in your mouth, and how hard that is to make to eat and just to concentrate and just live every life with all these sores in your mouth. It was terrible. And so several months later, that's when she was diagnosed with cancer. And then the cancer that caused the autoimmune disease caused a lung disease. So first she found out she had the autoimmune disease. Then we found out she had cancer. And a few days later, they kept her in the hospital because Megan had trouble breathing. And the doctors knew that non-Hodgkin's lymphoma usually doesn't have the symptom of difficulty breathing. And when they kept her overnight, they found that she also had this very rare lung disease called bronchiolitis obliterans. I know that's a mouthful, but you might know it as popcorn lung. You might have seen that in the news, which can be caused by vaping and e-cigarettes as well. It can be caused by several different things. And for my sister, it was the autoimmune disease, so her body was attacking itself. So we were devastated. The cancer was the good news. She would go through chemotherapy treatments for about 5 months and she was cancer free. So we were thrilled. We had some good news. But unfortunately, because she was going through chemo, the doctors, the pulmonologists were not able to treat her lung disease. And so it quickly progressed over that 5 month period. And so in February 2018, when she was cancer free, it was time for us to battle that lung disease. And at this time, I live in Plano, Texas. My sister lived in South Carolina. I would travel back and forth to advocate for her. And as background, I have been in the pharmaceutical industry for over 20 years. In fact, I teach sales reps how to speak to physicians and nurses, how to ask good questions, how to handle difficult conversations. And I found that my professional knowledge was really helping me to advocate for my best friend, this person, this woman who I just adored, who I was never going to leave her side. And because I know she would never have left my side either. And all of this knowledge came in handy. Unfortunately, no matter what I did, and I hope this brings some of you peace, was not going to change the outcome. My sister's lung disease was so aggressive. And when you have a rare disease, it means that the doctors don't really know what to do for it, unfortunately, and it's out of your control. And so several months later, in October of 2018, my sister ended up passing away 3 days before her 48th birthday. I was devastated for her girls, for my family, for myself. She was my best friend. And no, I no longer had my best friend. So after she passed away, I was, of course, sad and grieving, but I was also angry. I had lost my father, who was this wonderful, loving dad that I was blessed with as well. And now I've lost my sister, and my family was deteriorating, my little family unit. And as time went on, I realized that neither my father or my sister would want me to go on like this. And so I decided I had to pull my boots up and figure out a way to live a happy life without these people whom I love so much, who died at young ages. And so that's when I decided that I would write a book, as Sherelle likes to say, badass advocate, with two S's, not two Z's. I know she likes to tease me. Um, and I wrote the book because of my experience, yes, with my sister. Also, I wasn't a caregiver for my dad. I was only 20 years old and I was in school in North Carolina and he was in Philadelphia. So I missed a lot of opportunities and I had a lot of regret. And having those regrets taught me what I wanted to do the next time around and things I didn't want to repeat for my sister, which made me a better advocate for Megan. And so I wrote this book and I share these 8 strategies with caregivers, with family members who maybe aren't the primary caregiver. It doesn't matter. If you want to play a part, you can do some of these things. If you live close, you can use some of these strategies. If you live far away, you can use some of these strategies. You can play a part in your loved one's journey, no matter what disease. We've talked a lot about dementia. It can be for someone with dementia, but it also can be someone with cancer or a lung disease or whatever it is. It doesn't really matter what the disease is. I teach you basics of how to advocate for your loved one, both someone who's at home and someone who's hospitalized. These strategies that I share aren't difficult. They're not rocket science. They just are things that anyone can do, but it may take you years to figure it out. And I don't want that for you. I want you to have that book, that guide, and be able to figure things out right away and say, okay, this is the person I need to go ask. This is how I ask a good question. So that's my story. And now of course, I have the book, but I also have a website, badassadvocate.com. I do speaking engagements like this so I can share some of my tactics and my tips. And so today I'm going to share the first tip in the book, which I think is the base of everything else that I speak about. And that is how to build a support team. If you are a caregiver, or even if you're not the main caregiver, you need to build a support team. You cannot go it alone. The caregiver needs the support team, and so does the patient. You both need this. So I'm going to break this down into 2 buckets. There are those of us who have family, like I did, that lived close to my sister. My mom and my brother lived close by. And of course, I would get on a plane when I could. And my sister had a big support team that naturally came about. Those of us were blessed with that. And there are still some things to think about. Number one, you need to keep that support team limited. You can't if you have a big family like me, I have this big Irish family. We have 29 first cousins on one side of the family. You can't have everyone involved. That would be chaotic. People would be fighting. Who's in charge? So keep it small and make sure when all these tips I give you, the patient needs to be in charge if it's possible to make these decisions, right? So for my sister, who did she want to be part of that core support team? I would say keep it less than 10 people. Probably 5 is ideal for the day-to-day stuff, people coming in and out, and then some on the maybe fringe who can come and support when needed. Okay. So keep it limited. Also, be clear on everyone's roles. Have a family meeting. And maybe it's not just family, maybe it's neighbors and friends. And I'm going to dive into that in a minute. But have a meeting, decide who does what, and use your strengths. Think of it in a business sense. When we form a team at business, we want to tap into your strengths. What are you good at? I'll give you an example. Let's say you have a nephew who's a teenager and he is awesome at technology, as most young people are. Use them. Maybe he sets up a website to keep track of meals that are donated or visitors, okay? Or maybe financial donations. Tap into people's strengths. So think outside the box. Also, you could tap into people just to do little things like unload the dishwasher or take the trash can in. Maybe there's a neighborhood kid that would be happy to support. Get creative. Okay, so that's family, which is a little bit easier when you have family. It's more editing. Okay. But then you have those of us who don't have any family around. And like, I don't have a ton of family where I live here in Texas. So I would need to get creative if I was the patient or the caregiver here. So what do you do? Number one, you really need to get creative. And you can do that by creating a mind map. So if you've never done a mind map, I used to do them in English class in high school. Google it. You'll find a ton of examples, mind map. And it's basically a way of brainstorming. Think of how can you get help from the community around you. Also, keep in mind, people at a distance can also help. I supported my sister by doing research online. I didn't need to be in the same room as her to reach out to doctors over the phone or email or research her lung disease. That I could do at home in Texas and still support her. Okay. Neighbors and friends. I mentioned bringing in the trash. How can they support? Maybe they don't play in day to day, but they can do other things. Like, can they go and pick up medication for you or the patient? Little things that you think I can do myself, take it off your plate. It will reduce your stress levels. That is the key. You focus on the big stuff. Who can help with maybe some of the smaller things? And they can do it on a regular basis. Okay. And then my last tip for people that don't have any family, who? Who do you bring in? So this is part of getting creative. When you're making that mind map, you can think nonprofits. There are national nonprofits like American Lung Association, who I work with, or the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, both great. There's so many wonderful national organizations. But then there's also smaller local nonprofits. Typically people who donate their time to these nonprofits want to be a part of, they've had that trauma, they've gone through something, or maybe they currently are, and they're happy to donate their time and support someone. Tap into them, ask if you can have some support. And sometimes they have financial support as well. And they have tons of online information and resources. Do you belong to a church? My sister belonged to a church, and we had these older retired church ladies come over and sit with my sister. They didn't handle anything medical, but they sat with her while her husband and her siblings and her mother were at work and couldn't be sitting there just making sure she was okay and maybe helping her walk to the bathroom. And then the last idea is think of students in the area. I live near a high school, there's colleges locally. Sometimes students are part of a sorority or fraternity. I was in high school part of a sorority, and we wanted to volunteer our time. So think about those things and how these kids can get experience. And obviously, you want to vet anyone coming into your home, okay, if you don't know them personally. So resources, phone calls, make sure you do your due diligence. But some of those students want to volunteer. They just don't know where to find you. So reach out to schools, colleges. Is there a medical school nearby that someone can come over and maybe get some experience? Okay. So those are all for free. Of course, you can do paid home health and home care, which you can do that research and refer to your state website and see if you can get support sometimes and get paid as a caregiver. So just start to think outside the box. Don't do it alone. That's my main message. You will get burnout, and you are of no use to anyone if you're sick and you can't take care of your loved one because you're trying to do it all. Make sure that you don't try and do it all. Brene Brown talks about how, as people that are giving, sometimes we have a hard time taking. So make sure that you are willing to take as much as you are giving, because you deserve to also take that support. So thank you for having me, Sherelle. Again, it's Badass Advocate, which you see down below. And come find me. And I wish you the best of luck, and I hope that helps. Have a happy Easter to those of you celebrating.